Well, well, well. Here we are again in disappointment corner. You know, it seems every year, apparently I skipped last year. The Pittsburgh Steelers love to disappoint me, disappoint you, disappoint us all with so much promise. Now, last year didn't have a ton of promise, but this year had promise. But for me, this season unfortunately was probably over a long time ago when the warning signs started to be there, to the point that I'm not even like as upset as I would have been if they like ran the table or went 15-1 and then laid this dud of a game. There were some warning signs that happened really in the Ravens game, the second Ravens game. Their schedule got moved around a good bit. I feel like this contributed to part of it, but that excuse only takes you so far. But that Ravens game, when it went from kept changing times, changing days, changing things, when they came out against a shell of what the Ravens were and barely scraped by, I was concerned. They came out next week. They laid that dud at Washington. It was their first loss this season. Then it started to stockpile to the point where it's like the shame is some of those games were winnable games, and it looked like that they forgot almost how to play football, which was very strange to a team that ripped off 11 straight. And, you can go and say, oh, they didn't play a lot of good people. They played every, I believe the stat was every AFC playoff team. So let's not say that they didn't play good people. Now, I could be wrong on that. I did read that somewhere, but the Chiefs have not played every AFC playoff team. So let's give some credit where credit's due. But unfortunately, the Steelers, whether it's injuries that caught up with them, the loss of Bud Dupree, the loss of Devin Bush, you could even say now Spillane filled in nicely, but then when he was gone, Avery Williamson, my hope for that trade of Williamson coming in to fill the void never really happened. He didn't really do much of what I hoped he was going to do. So the Steelers, and I can't even fault, I'm not going to sit here and, talk noise on the Browns. They were the better team. They wanted it more. It had nothing to do with Juju's comments about them or something that the media decided they were going to run with. I had arguments about with people on Twitter about this. Do you see the Browns, who have not been in the playoffs since 2003, that they tried harder or did more or worked harder? Not for their city and their loyal fan base. Not because they haven't been to the playoffs in 17 plus years. No, they heard Juju's comments and they're like, let's try. Let's really try. Let's really give it to him. No, it had nothing to do with that. Now, on the other side of the coin, Juju sometimes brings that on himself. He occasionally will say and do things he probably shouldn't say or do. The dancing on the logo thing was fine until the team started losing. Then suddenly it was some big issue. And then what happened with every other team? Every other team that sit there, it started with the Bills when they're like, let them dance and we'll do the work. Then they show this fun little video before the Colts game of the Bills dancing at practice. No outrage, no nothing. What happened with Ravens and the Titans? Ravens felt disrespected that the Titans were on their logo. Ravens win the game. What do? They dance around on the Titans logo. What happened after this Browns game with Juju? Oh, Cleveland's dancing in the locker room, dancing the Juju thing, dancing to this thing, doing that stuff. Is that better? Is that like, oh, we showed you? You're doing the same thing that he was being criticized for. You think Juju's going to leave? I'm going to get to that. But truth be told, Juju, and I don't know where this came from, but the hate that kid gets is unreal. He does so much charity stuff for people around Pittsburgh, and he delivers the goods on the field. Now, people will take a knock and they'll say, hey, Juju only had 100-yard game since Antonio Brown left. Well, 2 with last night. And Juju had a monster game last night. The problem is they were playing the whole time they were playing behind. So, Ben threw the ball almost 70 times. So, truth be told, do you think Ben will be here next year? That is the $1 million question, isn't it? I made a post that I really didn't think too much about on Facebook. I saw him crying on the sidelines with Pouncey, and I really thought that was it. I made a post that said, like, hey, if this is it, he's done something for me that, some teams don't get. Like Cleveland hasn't ever had this happen to them. Other teams haven't had this happen to them. I saw them win the Super Bowl. I saw my hometown team, the Steelers, win the Super Bowl, not once, but twice under him. So I said, like, thank you, Seven. And for some reason, even though I didn't tag it or anything, it got real viral, and a whole bunch of people were sharing it and liking it, almost like 2,000 shares of this post that I put out late last night. But I don't know. I don't know about Ben being here next year. It really looked like the end last night. And who knows if that's the good thing or not. It's hard to say what. Then Ben in the post game made it sound like he might be here next year. He kind of left the door open, but also didn't commit to anything either. But the rumor that's coming out today is that Pouncey is possibly retiring, and Pouncey and Ben always said that they're going to go out together. So take that for what it's worth. Do you think Rudolph is the future or no? I'll be honest, I was real sour on Rudolph. And then in that game against the Browns, I thought he played pretty good. After Ben, had moments this year where he looked sharp as the Ben of old, and he had moments this year where he looked bad. He was making bad reads, making poor decisions out there, and I was surprised to see Rudolph flicking it around against a Cleveland Browns team that had every reason to win this game against Steelers backups to get in the playoffs for themselves. And Rudolph, to his credit, almost took him to a win, very close to a win against this team that dogged us last night. I mean, let's call it for what it is. But whether or not Rudolph would have been better last night with all those problems right out of the gate with that terrible fourth quarter, he probably would not have been. It probably would have been as bad, if not worse. Because Ben has this weird thing where when he starts losing, it clicks in his head like, oh, I should try now. I should try harder now. And then he'll just start flicking the ball around, and you're like, where was this in the early part of the game? But then, bad Ben crept up as well. So I don't know if Rudolph is the future. I don't know what this team does if Ben decides to hang it up. I fully think that they're going to have to bring in a veteran to compete, because they're not getting the top tier QBs that are in this draft. Unless they're moving up to 10, which they probably are not going to do again, top 10 pick, because that requires a lot of currency. And this team is going to have a bunch of holes this year. The saddest thing about the Steelers coming into this offseason is that they are way up against it with the cap. Whether Ben retires or not, if Ben comes on, something's got to be done cap-wise. I mean, something's got to be done even if Ben retires cap-wise anyway. But if Ben stays on, he's $19 million against the cap, and that inflates to $41 million because of money that they pushed off to sign other people. TJ Watt's going to demand a giant contract in the offseason, a monster contract in the offseason. And so, unfortunately, there's some names that are going to have to go. I pulled this up. These are, and I don't know if this will, it's too bright, it won't come through well. Let me rattle off the names of the free agents heading into next year. Villanueva, Avery Williamson, Bud, Cameron Sutton, Cassius Marsh, Chris Wormley, Benny Isadora, Connor, Jaron Elliott, Gerald Hawkins, Jordan Berry, Jordan Dangerfield, Joshua Dobbs, Juju, Filer, Hilton, Sean Davis, Alu Alu, Banner, Ola, Ray McLeod, Trey Edmonds, Hassenauer, Marcus Allen, Robert Spillane. There's your free agents. Now, some of them are restricted. Ola, Ray, Trey Edmonds, and Hassenauer, Allen, and Spillane are all restricted in some way. Ola, Ray, Edmonds, restricted. Hassenauer, Allen, Spillane, exclusive rights free agent. Now, based on those lists of restrictions, I say you extend an exclusive rights deal to Spillane. I think Spillane did pretty good this year. Not too great last night, but pretty good this year. Allen played meaningful snaps for you, but nothing, I would say, super notable there. Hassenauer played a lot of games on the offensive line for the Steelers, but had some struggles. Ray was okay as returner. I don't know if he was, I would say he was a more explosive returner than Ryan Switzer was, but is that enough to extend him exclusive rights? Ola, potentially you extend. Trey Edmonds, I mean, he did a little bit, but that's it. Now, unrestricted, Villanueva is surely gone. Surely gone. Too much money. They can't afford him. Avery Williamson's gone. He didn't really do too much and will probably command a good bit of money that the Steelers don't have. And when I say the Steelers are up against it cap-wise, they are up against it cap-wise. They have, like I said, been at $41 million. They're over the projected cap by about somewhere in the neighborhood, and the projected cap hasn't been announced yet. So, the true cap hasn't been announced yet. So it's just projected at this point, and they are over by about anywhere you see it about 10 to 15 million. Hayward's going to command a big restructure, but like I said, Villanueva's gone. Avery Williamson's gone. I think Bud Dupree's gone. He's going to command big dollars on the market. Now, maybe with the injury, he signs for less, but that's unlikely. Cameron Sutton will command big money on the market. Cassius Marsh, they kind of hyped him up a bit. He played last night. I didn't see a whole ton from him. That doesn't mean, he won't be a depth guy next season. Chris Wormley, I was kind of hyped about that trade when they made it. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. He couldn't beat out Bugs for a position. That was the idea, wasn't it? That he was going to come in as like an end, or he couldn't beat out Alu, couldn't beat out Bugs. So he can probably go. Isadora, did he do too much? Not really. I don't even know if he played a ton. James Conner, I like Conner, but too many injuries. He seems like a hard runner when he is in there, but unless he comes in on a real team-friendly deal, I wouldn't, even if he comes back on a team-friendly deal, I would still be looking for a running back. Connor has showed the ability to have starter-capable carries at times, but I would say he is a bell cow back. He's not your every down back. He's just not. Like, he's a guy that, if there's an injury comes up and he can spell, sure. Like a Benny Snell type. Like, he's better than, Benny Snell in the sense that he can, make some tough runs, make some nice cuts, do some things, but he is not your every down running back. Too many injuries. And you could say that's the fault of the line for Connor, and he was, relatively healthy all year, even though he did miss some games with injury and has his whole career, and that's part of the problem, is durability. I would not pay him big money. If he wants to come back on a cheap deal, that's fine, but that should not be – that is a Band-Aid over a bullet hole if you put him in there as your guy again. I think he made that Pro Bowl that 1 year. Had some great games, had a couple dud games in that Pro Bowl season. I do not think this is someone you bring back full-time But like I said, well, who am I? I'm just a guy, but I'm giving you my opinion. Jerome Elliott for depth, sure. Hawkins can probably go. I'm sure they'll get someone in the draft. Jordan Berry, Jordan Berry I thought actually was pretty good. I was hard on Jordan Berry for years. Thrilled when Colquitt took his job this year. Thrilled. And then Colquitt punted like Jordan Berry, and then they brought Jordan Berry in, and Jordan Berry punted like a slightly better Jordan Berry. I'm not knocking Berry. I think he actually was all right this season, had some good punts, but I would draft someone, maybe bring in a veteran punter. Jordan Dangerfield, they love Jordan Dangerfield. He always looks great in camp. When it comes to the field, maybe special teams wise, he's all right, but deep depth option, maybe on a cheap deal, sure. Dobbs is a third quarterback. I like some of the things that Dobbs did in the Cleveland game, but clearly they hold Mason over Dobbs. So Dobbs is a third, and then it depends on what you do in the draft. If they draft a QB, if Ben hangs it up and they draft some QB, move up in the draft, and Dobbs is gone. I don't know if you re-sign Dobbs because of that. You let him kind of test the open market and you hope for the best. Maybe it's something you get later as potential for, if you don't bring anyone else in, but I'd let him hit the open market. Juju is a good question because Juju will command big money on the open market. Juju, I don't feel he has the let's be careful. I'm not going to say I don't feel he has the ability to be a 1. I think he can be a 1. Granted, you have a quality 2, but I think he's a premier slot guy, and big money can be paid for premier slot guy. And he made all the catches. He made some plays. Yes, he had some dud games. He cost me a fantasy championship because of that dud game against the Bengals. I started him in a fantasy championship, and it was his worst game of the season. But beyond that, he had a pretty good season. I can't fault, what Juju did now. He didn't have too many games over 100 yards. He had some games where he had some drops. Not nearly as bad as Johnson. Not nearly as bad as Ebron, but he had a couple drops this season. Not too many, super costly plays. Maybe that fumble in the Bengals game, but nothing. I feel like if he can come back on a team-friendly deal, I think he is someone you try to bring back and I'm going to say over Bud, and the reason being is not because I think Bud's not valuable to this team. In fact, Bud showed his value when he got hurt and this team kind of dogged out a bit. But Bud's going to command some money. Giant money, I think. And even if, like I said, with the injury, even if it's less, I still think it's more than the Steelers can give him, especially if they're going to re-up TJ. You got Filer. I'd like to keep Filer. So Juju has gone $15 million, and you may be right on that, sir. You may be right on that. They're saying $15 million a year. If that is the money, I remember, I think maybe a year or something after, maybe it was the year after Super Bowl 40, and I really wanted Randall L back, high on the fact that he threw a beautiful past the Hines Ward in that game. I just liked Randall L. I liked the way he played. And then I heard the money that I think Chicago gave him. Was it Chicago or Washington? I can't remember. He ended up with both of them at one point, but I think it was Chicago. And they gave him something like that range, like 10, 15 million. It's like, okay, bye. Sorry. I like you, but not to that much, not to that much money. When you're completely up against it in the cap. Now, few names left. Mike Hilton will command some big dollars on this market as a premier slot corner. I don't think the Steelers will be able to afford him back. They always said it was Hilton or Sutton. you got to keep one. That was always a scenario. I don't know if there's a scenario where they get either of them. I just think they're just going to have too many. There's too many holes to fill. There's no money to go around, and this will help. This will only be sorted out by the cap wizard that is Omar Khan. Every Steeler fan should be thanking the Texans for botching their GM thing, because Khan reportedly was working a deal with them. He was working a deal with the Texans when they hired that GM or whatever he was from New England. Khan was actually talking numbers. Like, this was almost going to be a done deal in Houston. And we need that guy here to sort out this mess of a cap this year. Now, the one thing about this cap this year in regards to next year is that next year being 2022, the Steelers have the most cap in the league by a considerable margin. Only 17 players under contract, and without mega deals to Watt and anybody else they sign, and Ben restructuring, possibly coming back, or somebody else they're adding on. 17 players under roster and a giant pile of money. So if they could backload contracts a year, so where the money falls into year 2, year 3, maybe they can salvage some of these guys that I think are done. I want to be wrong that this roster is going to be, completely stripped next year. And that's regardless of whether Ben comes back or not. If Ben comes back, what's he coming back to is the question. Are you competing for a Super Bowl with a stripped-down roster? Now, you have some great players. You have Mika, you have Watt, you have Hayward, you have, potentially Ben. You don't know quite what you're going to get out of him with another year older. So you have talent there, but is enough talent to take you to where you want to go, or are you going to be meddling? Because if you're going to be meddling, if Ben decides, hey, I'm going to do one more to attempt to win one, said what level of roster is he coming back to? So a few other names to go. You got Sean Davis. Didn't really do much. I know they brought him back on a free agency deal. Maybe for depth you bring him back. Alu is great depth for his position. Now, it depends on what type of deal he wants. He potentially could, I don't know how much money he command being a bit older, but he was pretty disruptive on the Steelers line. Now, can they find a better DT in the draft? Perhaps. So we'll wait and see on that, but decisions have to be made in March. You can't wait until the draft and see if you find anyone. He may be gone by then. Zach Banner, I think you can bring back on a very friendly deal. People like him. Unfortunately, got hurt in week 1 this year. You didn't really see what he could bring as a starter on this team, and you may have to bring in all the linemen you can bring. I think said Villanueva's gone. Hawkins is probably gone. So you need tackle depth for sure. So I think you bring back Banner on a cheap deal, but it's going to be interesting to see what this team does. It's really going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward. And, I'm going to put out my wishful thinking mock draft as I always do, hoping for the best. But there's a lot to be decided right now. I'm not going to find better than Tyson as nose tackle in draft unless the first round. Now, see, that's the thing. They should not draft a nose tackle in the first round. But I do feel that nose tackle is something they always seem to push off. They push off and they push off and they push off, and they never seem to get some big disruptor in there. Like I said, Alu fit quite well. He's fit good, but they're still not that big, meaty, dare I say, Casey Hampton type guy. They still haven't truly found that guy. And if Alu is gone, they're going to have to do something. Because you can't put, who was starting there when Alu was out? Bugs? What did he do? Not too much. Wormley was did he even play? Would he play an end or did he play the nose tackle? He didn't do anything. So they have concerns there. That's one of the many holes. I think offensive line is something you potentially address in the first round of this draft, or running back. If Connor's not back, you need that bell cow guy. And no, let's clarify. Even if Connor is back, you need that bell cow guy. They cannot go into next season, and I'll put my name on this, with James Conner as the starting running back. They can't. They can't. He hasn't done enough to show, and that O-line, you don't know what you're going to get out of that product. Because this year, it was shaky. And, you know, they look good in a sense stat-wise because it was like Ben was sacked the least thing out of his career. And then they turn around and go, Ben got the ball out in 2.25 seconds, much to sometimes the Steelers' peril. Because one of the things that Ben would do that everybody would hate for a long time is they're like, oh, he's holding on. Hold on the ball. Hold it. He's holding on the ball. He's holding on the ball trying to make a play. A sack. Now the least sacks of, I think, like his career or something like that, which is not exactly because of the line, but far more because of the game plan to get the ball out and usually resulted in very short throws. Helping Ben, that the receivers sometimes were able to take it and get yardage with it, but that didn't happen as often as they hoped it would. What happened was a lot of short yardage, a lot of behind the line, a lot of getting stuffed behind the line. So it's going to be a bit nerve-wracking, I think, as a Steeler fan. Unfortunately, I think this might have been their last true shot with the talent. You know, I'm looking over this list of all these free agents, and isn't Hayden a free agent, or is they're saying he's a potential casualty because they're right up against the cap? Rumor is that maybe David Castro might be a cap casualty because he got, I think, voted on for All Pro. He was not that good this season. Pouncey was not that good this season. Now Pouncey may be hanging him up, if the rumors are to be true. There was a very emotional moment on the sideline there. Now it's a 1 day removed from this, so we don't know yet who's hanging it up and who's not. If Pouncey hangs it up, then you probably keep DeCastro as a veteran of the line because there's not really anyone else that can fill in and be that main line veteran. To be a lot of younger guys, maybe some guys have to come in and from rookies drafted to be starters on this line. So that is that's a concern there. Regardless of how you feel Pouncey played, and after that first snap of last game, I'm sure people are fine with him hanging up because that was a bad snap that started that horrible first quarter that they had. Not all his fault, but certainly didn't help. That you gifted him 7 in the first 3 seconds of the game. So we'll see as far as what this team is. Now, when I hope the Steelers come back, I hope they come back with 2 new coordinators. Not going to happen, but the offensive coordinator, I believe he is in the contract year, Fickner, should be gone. He should not be the offensive coordinator of this team any longer. So Hayden and Steven Nelson both have 1 year. So it's strange. They always heard the rumor that Hayden was just gone. Now, I assumed it was because his contract was up, but maybe it's because everybody thinks he's cap casualty, and they might be right on that. So Steven Nelson has 1 more year too. So a lot of work's going to have to be done in this offseason to determine what this team looks like starting next year. But like I said, at the very least, needs to come back with a new offensive coordinator. Because Fickner ain't it. Regardless of, some of the things you can put on Ben, some of the things you can put on Tomlin, whether that's, Ben with execution, wrong reads, making poor decisions, you can certainly put on Ben. Tomlin with sticking to a game plan even when it's failing and blowing up in their face. And, Tomlin makes 90% of defensive calls. Okay, so that's more on Tomlin than it is on Butler. But at the same time, the issue there is when you go to Butler and you go, okay, we're going to change coordinators. And he's like, well, we've had the most sacks in the league for the last 3 years. They always have a reason why they keep on these people. And Fichtner, it's going to say, hey, we won 11 straight. Hey, they were looking, we were looking pretty good. Hey, we did this. Hey, we did that. But no. His offense was predictable. It was bad. Everybody knew the sequence of the plays. You knew on first down, they'd throw a little out or a little slant. It would get 2 to 3 yards. On second down, they'd try to make a run. It wouldn't get anything because either the running back would get stuffed behind the line, Benny usually, Connor more often than not would just get stuffed. Then you're in third and long, empty set. Try to throw 4 yards when you need 8 or 10 or 12. Happened so much this year. An unbelievable amount of times. So Fichtner's got to be gone. And I hope you bring in someone externally. Don't bring in someone that's already here. That's what happened with Fichtner. Now, they said Fichtner was always a Ben call, that was the guy that he wanted. Well, here's the thing. If Ben's not coming back, yeah, you need young blood calling plays off. Exactly right. If Ben's not coming back, and even if, well, that gets us the concern. If Ben is coming back, is he going to learn a whole new offense in what could arguably be his final year? Is he going to learn a brand new offense with these younger kids that are going to be blocking potentially his blind side? See, that's what makes me think Ben's done. And I think that emotional scene on the sideline is pounced. See, maybe him coming to the realization that he's done and what's going to happen next year. Who's to say? If he does come back next year, I don't see a scenario where he's learning a new offense. And that doesn't bode well for the Steelers bringing in a new offensive coordinator, even though it really needs to happen. Now, Fichtner's coming into his last year without a contract. So that's the positive side. That potentially, because he doesn't have a contract, that he's on the way out. And I hope that's the case, because he's awful. Now, Keith Butler, if Tomlin calls 90% of the defensive plays, then any defensive faults, like leaving Spillane on an island against Jarvis Landry or having middle linebackers on fast, shifty, capable receivers, is on Tomlin. And unless they fire Tomlin, nothing changes. You can put in all the schemes and all the differences and all the issues you want. So a lot of people are calling for Tomlin's head after this one. And I can understand their faults. I, to be honest, have usually been a Tomlin defender, but I remember the scenario way back when of the San Diego Chargers. Marty Schottenheimer led them to a 14-2 record with LT, I believe he was the reigning MVP of the league in that season, and Phillip Rivers was slinging it. And they died in the first round of the playoffs. Their first game, they had a bye. They came in the divisional round and got dogged. And Marty got fired with a 14-2 record. They canned him. They canned Marty for a lot of the same reasons that Tomlin gets faults for. Tomlin has never had a losing season as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But playoff-wise, there's a lot of questions there. Take it from this season and what the hell happened in this game last night to 2 years ago in the Jacksonville game, where this defense led up a ton of points to Jacksonville. And there's legitimate reason to call for this dude's head. There's legitimate reason. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers do not fire head coaches. Repeat it. The Pittsburgh Steelers do not fire head coaches. Loyalty to possibly a fault, they don't do it. So I'd be shocked if the Steelers got rid of Tomlin. And the crazy thing is, the rest of the league functions like the Eagles. Doug Peterson has a statue outside Lincoln Financial Field of him and Nick Foles, the Philly Special. The Philly Special, there's a statue outside of Lincoln Financial Field, the Philadelphia Eagles, and they canned him today. He's their first coach ever to lead them to a Super Bowl, and in 3 seasons removed from that, canned. Meanwhile, Tomlin hasn't been to a Super Bowl in a long time, but they're going to let it ride. Do you think Watt looked like Defensive Player of the Year? Yes. Not last night. Last night I didn't see him. I don't know if he's nursing an injury. I know I saw Hayward laboring around last night, running like he was toting a wheelbarrow. He looked like he's got some injury or something that needs to be sorted out, but Watt was not there. Let me clarify. Sorry. Watt had a couple plays where he rushed around that edge and got Chubb in the backfield. But as far as Baker, they said Baker, and I read the stat, and I read it real quickly. Baker threw, I think, with like 38 passes or something like that, and wasn't pressured once in an official stat, or one time of like 38 attempts or something. Now, that cuts off at a certain point where like if he moves out of the pocket, but like in the pocket, he was not getting any pressure at all. Like nobody was getting pressure. They were sending the blitz and it was getting stuffed. And they didn't have a couple of their starting guys out there. And one of their guys got hurt and they're still getting stuffed. So I do feel Watt did enough in the season to be Defensive Player of the Year in the season. But he wasn't unanimous AP. He wasn't unanimous, and Aaron Donald was. And Aaron Donald could get that award almost every year. The guy is a monster, and he's a phenom, and he deserves everything he gets. But Watt got robbed last year. Gilmore had 8 games against the junkiest of opponents. And, some would argue that the Steelers did that. But I argue that other teams had that too, and you're just knocking the Steelers because they ripped off 11 straight. But Gilmore, in the second half of that season, was not great. He was getting blazed. I can't remember what game it was, but I remember seeing plays where he was getting blazed. He did not deserve Defensive Player of the Year last year. I feel Watt deserves it this year. I don't know if he's going to get it. So, what's to do with the Steelers? What are they going to do coming into next year? I feel like it's going to be a no-look team. Some people want to completely blow it up. They want to get rid of everybody. They want to fire sale the team. They want to fire Tomlin. They want to get rid of damn near everybody. And that sort of passion and anger, I understand. But the Steelers have talent enough to compete, I feel, but they need new blood. Coaching, they need some new ideas. I'll be honest, I think Tomlin needs that previous coach as a coordinator situation, the one that can get in his ear and tell him when to challenge, when to call timeouts with his terrible clock management, because regardless of whether you're a fan of Tomlin or not, his clock management is awful. So I think he would benefit from having that assistant head coach guy in a coordinator spot, hopefully offensive, because he controls the defense and probably wouldn't want someone there stealing his thunder, even though that defense, like I said, for all its benefits of being a lot of picks, a lot of fumbles, a lot of sacks, was a dog in those last few games, and especially last night was not good. Fault. Yeah, the linebackers on wide receivers is Tomlin's fault. Just that is a scheme thing, and thing. But they also looked gassed. They looked tired. They looked like they wanted to go home. They looked defeated. So take that for what it's worth. But this is going to be a new look team next year unless they pull off some cat miracle. And whether Ben's there or not. If I'm Ben, and let's say they fire Fickner and they have a new OC that's outside of the team currently that wants to install a new offense, a rookie probably, or you're not getting some high-priced veteran on the O-line, some rookie that's guarding your blind side, maybe hanging up. Now, a lot of people say, oh, he wouldn't. Do you think the online has looked worse because they lost Munchak? Yes. I thought that guy that they had that was like Munchak's protege who took over the O-line, who you don't hear anything about anymore, I think it's been a steady decline since. I don't know what magic Munchak has in that he motivated these guys, or maybe that those guys were just significantly younger and in their prime. No, maybe not DeCastro. DeCastro arguably should be in his prime. And a dog year is a dog year. I don't know if I would be one to cap casualty DeCastro because of one bad season when he's played all pro level in previous seasons. But Villanueva, if he's getting top dollar, bye, because he did not look good this year. If Pouncey retires, I appreciate what he did for us, but he did not look great this season. DeCastro did not look great this season. They all looked significantly worse. They didn't. You could say that they had some good pass blocking schemes, but their run blocking was awful. And you can only fault the running backs of the Steelers for so much because they're getting a handoff, or maybe they're going on a sweep, or they're going on an off tackle, and they're getting met in the backfield almost every time. Or Connor takes a dive up the middle, and he gets handed the ball, and there's someone, boom, right there immediately. It happened. You saw the positives and negatives of it last night. They actually gave the football to Derek Watt on a 1 yard, and he converted the first down because the Browns didn't realize that they were going to use a fullback, because they have never used a fullback ever, it seems, not for a long time. And then they got greedy and tried to use it again, and as soon as the Browns had some idea that Watt could get that ball, he got sniffed out immediately because they just couldn't rip through that line at will. So, yeah, that O-line was not good this season. And, some of them got accolades and probably undeserved. They shouldn't have got them. So, I think you're going to have some new blood on the line at key positions. And I don't know if Ben must come back to that. If you're Ben, I don't think you want to come back to that. Of course Ben wants another ring. He's a competitor, like Brady's a competitor, like other people are competitors. But how much longer? How much do you think you can compete for a Super Bowl when you're losing key talent to free agency, and you got young kids blocking your blind side again, and maybe you're going to end up with more sacks, more picks, more turnovers, and a watered down version of this team that dogged out. I don't know if you come back to that, unfortunately. And I'm sad to see him go. I mean, said the guy brought me to I saw that team at the top of the mountain, and I'll be sad to see him go, but I'll understand if that's it. And it felt last night like it was. Regardless of that, he threw 500 yards and 70 passes, and at times looked as sharp as he could look, and at times looked like he didn't see defenders out there. So it's hard to say, but I'll be honest. I think that's it for him. I think he's going to ride off in the sunset. You know, if Pouncey decides, if they both come back, you know what? Like I said, what are they coming back to? It's hard to say, and I'd love it if they made me eat my words. I'd love it if they made me eat my words, because like there's talent. There are things there that they can work with. You know, even if they lost Juju, I feel that the wide receiver room could be good. I don't know what happened with Johnson this year, but he's got to find his hands. He made far too many drops this year. Ebron showed that capability of a reason why they brought him in for big money, but far too many drops this year. Claypool was better than I could have expected. But the problem is they didn't look his way enough. Ben was forcing it to Deontay Johnson like Deontay Johnson was AB. Because Ben, in the last couple seasons, AB was his crutch. And he would just, every time they needed a first down, every time they needed to pick something up as AB. And sometimes Juju would be the one running free out there. And he'd miss them because he's trying to force it to AB. DJ was that for this year, and the problem is DJ had a lot of issues with it. He had the yips with the hands, but Claypool had moments this year where he was running free out there, wide open. I mean, he hit a slant and was gone, and you knew he'd catch it and be gone, and just Ben couldn't find him. So there's promise. It's not like this team is like as much as I can say like a watered down version of this team, that's just because of the talent you're potentially losing in free agency. But you just don't know what version of this team you're going to get. It's not to say they won't have talent. It's just I don't know. And maybe I'll put something out, another video, after the first wave of free agency to see if they do something. I don't see how they're going to do something with the money they have unless some cap wizardry takes place. There has to be some or unfortunately some retirements take place, because if Ben retires and Pouncey retires, a lot of money gets freed up, but a lot of talent gets lost, regardless of what versions of those two you're going to get next season. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And keep in mind, most importantly, a TJ Watt giant money extension, which, even though regardless of whatever he signs for, he deserves every penny, because he's that level good. And if you look at the stats, all-time Steelers stats that he's put up in his first contract year, you have to sign him to those dollars. But a lot of money in the defense could equal lacking in the offense. So, unfortunately, the Steelers did not do it this year, which I felt this was their last year. With the talent they're going to potentially lose via cap casualty, via free agency. The hope being that they can draft some players, get some players on the cheap that can play for little to no money and still deliver. But it's pretty discouraging. It's pretty discouraging. Not just of light, not just because they laid a dog out there, but because I was almost somewhat cautiously confident last night, given week 17, that the Steelers would, that Mason Rudolph almost took them to a win against the Browns, who needed that win. But I really knew deep down since that Ravens game and that constant COVID shuffling that this team was gassed and beat, and I just never thought it would end that way. Where and like I said, they had the ability where they almost kind of like made it a contest. They did a thing where they tease you as a fan. You get like teased a bit, and you're like, oh, they're gonna no, they're not. They're gonna do something. No, they're oh, they got it within 10. Oh, and they just give up another touchdown. They do that teasing that they love to tease you with. But I'm disappointed. I mean, as we all are, as Steeler fans, you kind of as much as everybody were like, okay, maybe this is the year because of the impending doom of the cap next year, the free agency of all of these players. And Ben's age and some of the other players, age, they're getting up there in years, and you hope that they had one last shot. You hope they had one last shot, and they ripped off 11 straight, and everybody felt real great. And then just right at the end, like this, was crushing, just crushing. So I don't know what to say about that, but I'd like to be optimistic. I'd like to remain hopeful. But the Steelers, this may be the year where they got caught up on. This North is not going to be a picnic for the next decade or so. Regardless of your thoughts on Baker, he did everything that he had to do last night. Made the throws, won the game. Lamar Jackson, you hope that maybe in the next few years that his talent dies off, but nothing's going to make me, seems to happen with all mobile quarterbacks. Eventually to a certain point, they become a pocket QB to mix results. Who's to say that happens for him? And Joe Burrow, you don't know yet. He was the first pick in the draft for a reason. He showed some flash in his games before he got hurt. And that's going to make it a tough division for a long period of time. A lot younger quarterbacks, all in their early to mid-20s. And, Ben's going to be what next year? 38, 39? Is he 39 or be 38? 38 now? Maybe 39. I mean, they're going to have to figure out a way to bring in some young blood in the QB position because, unless you feel that Rudolph's the guy, but I don't know if he's someone that can take them. I don't foresee a scenario where Rudolph takes this team to the Super Bowl in that division, in that conference. I just don't see it. But, yeah, that'll wrap it up. I've been talking for 52 minutes. I had to vent it out all day. All day. I, sat there frustrated. Now, not frustrated to the point where I took a ladder to my TV like that dude in the video, where people where he literally picked up a ladder and threw it through his TV and punched it through his TV. I've been upset in many Steeler games. I've never been that upset. But I also understand it. As a Steeler fan, you know that team had the potential to do more and just dogged. And, there's a lot of reasons and a lot of blame you can throw around and names you can throw around. And there's just a lot of reasons why this could be bad. One thing I didn't even think about before I go, one key thing that I didn't truly get frustrated with last night and to mention is Terrell Edmonds. Oh, he was awful last night. I know people hate Terrell Edmonds. He's not worthy of a first-round pick, and you're right. Has not done anything to prove that he's worth being the starter on this team. Great depth guy. If you could have him back as depth, but they do need to address the safety position in this draft, I feel. Edmonds you should not pick up his club option. They probably will, but you should not because he's done nothing to merit picking up his club option, which I think is this year. So this year they have to pick up his club option, and No, no, not where the money is, not where the cap is. I don't know what that number would be, but no. I put my foot down on this one. You need to draft a safety, or you need to bring in a veteran. There's veteran safeties seemingly every year, capable veteran safeties that you could bring in, and you make him a dimebacker, or you make him the guy on 3 safety sets, but he cannot be your starter in every formation. He cannot. And that's as hard as I went at with anybody, and there's other people I could certainly go after. But last night, I saw him give up at least 2 touchdowns because of a subpar play. And that, as someone, you don't want to be the person who you spot playing terrible. Where you actually, the best type of certain player are the player you don't see. They just make plays. They just play after play after play. They're making this play. They're making that play. They're getting everything done to the point where you're like, you expect it. And then you see that guy that's getting dogged. Tackles are getting run through. He's getting pushed off. He has poor tackling technique. He has poor route. He's making poor decisions running. That's that guy. He stood out like a sore thumb last night. Now, yeah, he was coming off an injury, and he was only out a week. Man, he was a reach when they took him. He's a second-day guy. You are 100% right. And made even worse by the fact that Lamar Jackson was taken, 2 picks after? So 2 picks after Edmonds went, Lamar Jackson went to the Ravens because he was one of the last picks in the draft. And maybe Steelers had a different decision that year, and that guy was taken. Seems to happen with the Steelers every year. Some guys picked that they had their eye on, and they just relegated to dealing with it's like, well, we're just going to draft our guy. This is our board. But Edmonds was it was one of the worst misses of the Colbert era. That draft, that awful draft that you can bring up with Mendenhall. The awful draft with Mendenhall. That awful draft. Wait, I'm just getting a text message. So let's say Ben leaves, Pouncey leaves. Can they still hang on to Dupree? If Ben and Pouncey leave, can they still hang on to Bud? It depends on what he's asking. And the question is, you brought in Highsmith as a 3rd-round pick. And yeah, Highsmith got hurt in that game. He showed flashes. He's not on Pouncey's level. Or, sorry, not a Pouncey. He's not on Bud's level. Sorry, I've been talking for almost an hour now. He's not on Bud's level yet. But can he get there? It was his rookie season. He's a 3rd-round pick. He showed some flashes, picked off Lamar Jackson, made a couple key plays, didn't convert the sacks. But if you remember, as much as people were saying, like, oh, we'll miss Dupree, and this defense, fell because Dupree wasn't out there. For 4 seasons, Dupree was the ire of a lot of people's hatred because he wasn't getting it done. He looked like a bust. It wasn't until money year that he started getting to the QB, and you saw the lightning fast cut around the edge that he could make and get to the QB, and you're like, oh, this is the reason why we keep Bud. Question is that, like I said, I don't know what the money level is, and you have to sign other people. So I don't know if they can keep Bud. I really don't see a scenario where they can keep him unless the money dwindles down because of Bud's injury this year and the uncertainty of whether he can start coming in next year, because he got injured fairly late in the season. Maybe not super late, but like mid to late in the season. Will he be ready by week 1? Will he be ready by a training camp? I don't know. So if you're getting someone that may not be ready by week 1, do you sign them to giant dollars? Maybe the Steelers get him on the cheap. Who knows? We'll see. But as far as needs for this team, because I'm getting to the hour mark, and we're gonna just jump right past it, because why the hell not? But I am gonna wrap it up here. Needs for this team heading into the draft: offensive line, absolutely. Running back, definitely. Is Vance McDonald still under contract? That's probably got to be a cap casualty. We didn't talk about him yet. Ebron's making big dollars. I feel like you need a tight end. I don't think Gentry's the guy. So what do you do there? Maybe tight end's a need. Now, I would say that's a later need. I don't know if you can get a quality tight end, and this last tight end class in this last draft was super deep. Are they all going to be as deep? Probably not. So, maybe the tight end that you could get in the draft in the 5th round is a tight end you're going to have to take early in this draft. So maybe you don't go tight end, you just bring in a veteran guy. $15 million a year for Bud is the rumor. $15 million. That would eat up all the money, because I think the difference if Ben retires against the cap and Pouncey retires against the cap is I think it's 16 for Ben and 8 for Pouncey if I look. And I could be wrong on those numbers, but that's 24. So if you're taking 15 for Bud, 15 for Juju, that's 30 right there. So can you do it? I don't think you can do it. You have to pick one. And the question is that if you pay Bud, are you getting premier double-digit sack Bud? Or are you getting the Bud that was the first 4 seasons of his Steeler career, where he was getting 5 sacks a season and was getting blown off the ball, and and plus coming off a devastating injury too. Somebody that's, and what's the average years for Bud? You giving him a 4-year deal, 5-year deal? Is that what you would give for Juju? 4 years at 15 a year? Bud, 4 years at 15 a year? Is that something that you want to tie your wagon to? Which one would you tie your wagon to more, Bud or Juju? If it's me, I think Juju. Not just because I think that if Claypool can progress to the 1, you hope DJ figures out his issues and becomes the 2. Vote for Juju right there. Yeah. DJ figure out his dropping issues, becomes the 2, and you keep Juju in the slot as a quality slot guy. Not saying you couldn't figure out a way to put maybe DJ in the slot and have Claypool and Washington as the outside guys, and put DJ in the slot, or reverse it, put DJ on the outside and put Washington in the slot. Now the thing is, Washington is he's that solid, steady possession guy. DJ, flashy moves guy. That's why I'm thinking DJ in the slot, because he can do that cut on a dime, and that's what you want on a slot guy. Just make those quick cuts and boom, catch him right there. I think, but then again, Juju can do that. And yeah, we have Alex Highsmith. So if Highsmith showed promise, like I mentioned, Highsmith showed promise in this year. Picked off Lamar Jackson, made some plays, had a couple sacks. Not to Bud's level yet, but could be. So that's the question. Let me know in the comments, you come across this hour-long video and you watch all 1 hour of me rambling on, frustrated, getting all my pent-up frustration that I had last night in front of the kids. You watch this whole for an hour, you tell me the one move you would make if you had control of the Steelers right now. Is it trading your entire draft to the Houston Texans for Watson, or Watson and J.J. Watt? You trade your entire draft to Houston Texans for Watson and J.J. Watt. Who says no? Who says no? Of course, you need offensive linemen, and you need a running back, and you need a few other people. That could be a concern when you don't have those people. Plus, there'd be the money concerns, and so he says, keep Juju, let Bud walk. I'm kind of in that agreement, to be honest with you. I think Juju has the higher ceiling of the two for me, because I think Highsmith is capable. Highsmith hasn't taken a turn yet where I feel he's of that level, but he's capable. He could get there. And I'm willing to have him. I'm willing to take that shot with Highsmith, considering how much Bud's going to make on the open market, because they can't afford him right now. I don't even know if they can afford Juju right now, or anybody if they could keep. There's going to, as mentioned earlier, there's going to be a lot of cap magic that has to get sorted out, especially if Ben comes back, and especially to the tune of $41 million. They're going to have to restructure. Now, do you add years onto Ben if he comes back? Man, I don't know. I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if you can do that considering the up and down play you got this year. So it's going to be a wild off season, Steeler Nation. It is going to be something to be seen as to what they actually do here. I'll be honest, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the draft. I'm concerned about what form the team comes back in next year. I don't know who's going to be playing quarterback. I don't know who's going to be playing center. I don't know who's going to be playing an outside linebacker except for Watt. I don't know in what level that defense and that comes back. I don't know what level this offense comes back, or the offensive line. They got to keep some people, but the money makes it seem like they cannot keep everyone. Money makes it seem like they can hardly keep anyone. So hopefully there's some magic. Omar Khan has some magic. Ben, you know what? I mentioned this earlier in the video, Cameron. And Dragon as well. That scene on the sidelines, I made a post about it on Facebook, and a whole bunch of people have been sharing it. I don't even know how they got it. I didn't tag it or anything. Just saying that's probably it. That's probably it for Ben. And the rumor is, based on Twitter or what I've seen today, that's it for Pouncey. And Pouncey and Ben, they're always walking out together. So I think that's it for them. And if that's it for them, yeah, you probably need to look at drafting a QB. The problem is right now we're 24. 24 in draft, the way the QB's gone these last few years, there's always going to be a team that's going to trade up and give up the farm. Happened, with the Mahomes year, happened with the, didn't happen last year. Like I said, the one guy that fell pretty far, and he still didn't fall in the first round, is Jordan Love. And, maybe a situation like that where one of the main QBs fall. Let's see. Get Ian Book. I'm not familiar. I haven't done my homework yet to actually do the my mock draft that I do every year. I do a wishful thinking mock draft where I hope for the best for Steelers Nation and pick people that may be potentially not realistic. And I've had some success on that front. But get Ian Book. He will fall to 24. Do you think we'll keep Tomlin? If yes, how much time? Well, knowing the Steelers and their history with coaches, as long as he wants to be here, because they don't fire people. They don't fire head coaches, at least. I feel like the offensive coordinator needs to be gone, but they will not fire head coaches. Yesterday was a disaster on all fronts. They came out of the gate junk. From the first snap that went over Ben's head to spotting them 28 points, which they never recovered from in the first quarter. And it's not saying that if they had not scored that 28 in the league that they wouldn't have made a competitive game, because they would have, but they never recovered from that start. Kyle Trask, I wouldn't mind it. You got to hope he's a franchise guy. I'd be honest, I wouldn't mind Najee Harris. If depending on who's playing QB, because Najee Harris is that bell cow back that unfortunately Connor has proven that he is not. Whether in terms of injury, like I said, Connor showed flashes, but Connor's not he's not worth a bump in pay. I would put it this way. You get him on a cheap deal, he's still not the bell cow. He is a quality depth guy. He showed the flashes. He showed the ability. You could say the O-line was at fault, and you'd be right. But Connor, is not that guy that's, he's not a Derrick Henry type. He's not a Josh Jacobs type. He's not a Dalvin Cook type. My favorite player is Snell, so I wanted to be RB1. Snell showed some promise, but also part of the promise, Snell ran into the same issues that kind of Connor did, in the sense that, he's getting the ball for a handoff, and there's someone in his face immediately, because that line couldn't run block to save their lives this year. I mean, it happened time and time and time again, and the only time that they ever got beyond the line of scrimmage is when there was some hole in the defense, or some, like I said, occasionally they'd set like one good block a game, and you'd get to second level, and you'd see the potential that both Connor and Snell can bring. You didn't get that out of McFarland this year. That was probably a waste of a fourth-round pick. Now, it's unfair to criticize him in his rookie season, but he didn't, that fourth-round pick could be used on a lot of things that would have helped us this year, and McFarland was not one of those. Tyler B. Is that the offensive line guy, Tyler Biaz, the guy? I agree. I agree with you on that. Certainly, there were capable players in that fourth round they could have taken ahead of McFarland. I mean, my wishful thinking mock draft, I had them taking A.J. Dillon, who Green Bay ended up taking in the second round, in the fourth round, and I ended up taking like a big nose tackle as well with the 2 fourth-round picks, both of which we could have used, but obviously A.J. Dillon going in the second round kind of hurt that a good bit. Kevin Dotson will be Big Al replacement. Now, Dotson's a guard. Do you have him moving to left? Do you think he could make the move to left tackle? I don't know. I would be concerned about that. But then again, who are you starting at left tackle? Because Big Al, you're not paying him big dollars. You're not paying Big Al big money to be there. Bring back Beachum for left tackle. Not a bad idea either. The question is that you can get Beachum for cheap, and Beachum's familiar with the offense. I can't imagine it changed all that much from when Beacham's here. As a spot start, I still feel you have to draft someone. See, I can understand the hate. The Browns being the Browns are terrible, and the Browns talked a lot of noise, and they backed it up, sadly. And they're dancing around in their locker room and everything. They're going to have a tough go with the Chiefs this next week. If the Browns are going to show me something if they get past the Chiefs, I don't think they're getting past the Chiefs. Claypool got a lot of flack today for for saying that they're going to get clapped next week. And you know what? He probably shouldn't have said that, but at the same time, he's probably right. Is Avery Williamson gone? Yes. Yeah, I think so. Unless he comes back on a friendly deal, I don't know if he did enough. He didn't even beat out Spillane, unfortunately. He didn't beat out Spillane for the middle linebacker spot. I thought it was his to be had. I thought Spillane was going to be. I thought Spillane was going to be the solid depth guy that he, when he came in, made some things and gave Spillane the ability to start, and Williamson could never beat him out. Spillane absolutely needs to stay. He's exclusive rights free agent, so they have exclusive rights to him. I say they make him a nice offer, and, maybe with a high tender, and someone wants to take that tender, they owe us a high draft pick. I'm fine with that. Because the man delivered the goods. Now, last night, coming off a 4 or 5 game lapse, had some struggles last evening, mainly because they put him on Landry a couple times. They put him on a couple people that he was not prepared to cover, and, got exploited a bit. But for the most part, I can't complain about Spillane coming off, on and off the practice squad with this guy. gets on the roster and delivers the goods. He was delivering the goods for a few games before he got hurt, to the point where you almost missed Devin Bush. One good thing that we've all forgotten about is that Devin Bush is coming back next year. That's a good thing. So I don't know if I don't know in what capacity your that middle linebacker room will be. If Vince Williams is still going to be there, I think he's still under contract. But you have Spillane, you have Bush, you have Williams. Probably Williamson's probably gone, unless Williams is gone. Then maybe quarterback room's going to be tough. Rumor is that Hayden's cap casualty. Oh, thank you, Dragon. I appreciate it. I appreciate that a lot. Rumor is Hayden's going to be a cap casualty. You don't know if you probably won't be able to afford Hilton. Mike Hilton is going to be the best slot corner in free agency. He's going to command big dollars as a slot corner. I think, if I remember correctly, Logan Ryan, when he left the Patriots, was a slot and got paid like $10 million a season or something, some giant dollar. And Hilton could arguably command that much. He could command that money that we won't be able to afford him. Same with Cameron Sutton. Cameron Sutton as a depth guy. I just don't. I don't know what Sutton's going to command on the market. He's shown flashes. He's shown capability. Depends on what the money is. It's safe to say that yes, Justin Lane is a bust. Showed a lot of promise. A lot of promise in the third round. When he was coming out, I went to the Steelers fan blitz. You can watch the video. I was high on him when he was a Steelers fan blitz. Like third round, tall corner, range, big program in Michigan State. I felt that he was somebody that could come in and eventually replace Hayden. No, not from what I see. He's hardly on the field. I'm not seeing anything from him that means that he can come in and fill Hilton's role or Sutton's role or Hayden's role or Nelson's role. Not at all. Unfortunately, that just looks like a bad pick. Unless he somehow finds a game, unless he somehow comes out of the shadows in training camp this year and wins a starting spot on this roster, I don't foresee that. He hasn't won a roster spot yet, so I don't think that's going to do anything for him. But you think Edmonds will want big money after next season? He better not. He's terrible. I've been a big. I've been very upset with Edmonds, more so last night, because he for sure gave up 2 touchdowns with just a bad approach, a lazy attempt at a tackle, bad route he took on a tackle, just bad approach to coverage, bad angles with tackling. I would not give him the club option. I would not pick up his club option for the 5th year as a first-round pick. I would not. I would look for safety in the draft this season. I wanted to look for safety in the draft last season. I wanted them in my wishful thinking mock draft. My first round, or the second round pick I had was Grant Delpit. Now, that blew up in my face because Grant Delpit got taken by the Browns, immediately got hurt in training camp and never became anything. But I wanted Delpit to take Edmonds' job last season. Now, Antoine Brooks Jr., I don't know what you got in him. I know he didn't make it out of training camp. He got cut, got put on the practice squad, came back. Did he do enough? Did he show enough? We don't know yet with Brooks. He hasn't, but it was also his rookie year. Who's to say, he's going to be someone that's going to be, he may be someone that, like they did with Marcus Allen, where they convert him to some makeshift middle linebacker. It was a strange thing that happened there this season, but we were struggling for anybody in middle linebacker. I'm surprised they didn't bring in someone that was just sitting at home who was an actual middle linebacker. Allen wasn't awful in that role, but it was just very strange to see him there, and he didn't really do anything, noticeably that where like Spillane jumped off the page when you saw him. You're like, oh God, we lost Bush. What's going to happen? And then Spillane comes in, and you're like, oh, like this guy can actually play capable football. You didn't see that with Allen. Why didn't Dobbs play when Tomlin? I think that was a tease. And Dobbs looked pretty capable when they were doing that cool thing with Cleveland. They had Cleveland kind of on their heels when they were bringing in Rudolph to sling it around. They were bringing Rudolph to sling it, and he was slinging it to Claypool, Washington, a few other people, and then they bring in Dobbs on short yardage, and they were not prepared for it. He was, taking runs and converting first downs, and I wouldn't have minded a series or two where they put in Dobbs just to keep it fresh, just to keep it exciting, just to keep it like it was something that they could put in there and go, we got to keep him honest now. We're putting Dobbs in there because he could break off on a run. Matt Cannon needs to be our OC. He actually let Mason throw the ball and the O got creative. That's fair. Now, for me, as much as I like Canada and wouldn't mind seeing him as OC, because that means Fichtner's gone forever, hopefully. And Fichtner's in a contract year. He is currently not under contract after this season. So Fichtner can go bye-bye. I was hoping they'd bring in an outsider and hopefully a former head coach to be an assistant head coach / offensive coordinator with some new schemes, some new exciting things. But the concern there is if he does not retire, is he going to be one to actually learn a new offense in one of his last years, or probably his last years of Steelers? Probably not. So maybe Canada would be the person to take over that role. I'd be all for it if they're not bringing anybody from the outside. At least it was not a blowout. They tried, and I believe they could have come back. And you're right. I felt confident at certain points that they could have come back. I question the decision to punt on 4th and 1. I really think that took the wind out of their sails offensively. Now, to that credit, to Tomlin's, to Tomlin's point there, the concern about this team getting a yard has shown up all season. They've been struggling to get a yard. It happened in the Washington game, like 7 times where they couldn't get 1 yard? It happened in this Cleveland game where they ran Watt and got a first down. Then they ran Watt a series later again and couldn't get a first down because the offensive line couldn't block anyone. So, yeah, they tried to get them. They tried to actually get them offsides with a punt formation, which was weird. It didn't work. But man, there's so many decisions you can say about the season and what they did and what, it was not a great, it was not a great end. Great start. You can look back at my tweets from November, and a couple people were giving me a hard time last night about them, where it's like they may never lose again. I was giving Pro Football Focus a hard time because they didn't put them at the top of the power rankings when they're 11-0, and I was like, this team, unless they really, rest, they're not going to lose another game. And then what happened? There you go. Davo's going to command big money, I think. If he ever came in, it'd probably be for a head coaching gig. But yeah, I could have never envisioned them starting 11-0 and then just being awful like the last few games. I couldn't have envisioned it. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect, truth be told, them to rip off 11 straight. It was just a weird season. It was just a weird season. Like, it was a weird season in the sense that they gave you so much promise that you look at the schedule after 11 wins and you're like, they might not lose to anybody. Like, I felt even when they lost to the Bills, I felt that was a winnable game. The Washington game was certainly a winnable game. The Bengals, they should have beaten. I don't know what happened there. The Colts, they did the tease again where you're like, okay, you're pretty discouraged after those losses, including the Bengals. You're like, there's no way they're going to beat the Colts, somehow beat the Colts. It was it was weird. It was like, it's just a weird, strange season. And yeah, next year's schedule is not going to do us any favors. Like you said, KC, Bills, Green Bay, those three rough games right there, just rough games. Because KC, just Mahomes and Tyreek Hill alone, is a tough matchup. Rodgers is getting up there. But has not shown any level of fall off that I've seen. Still playing top of his game. Now, that don't mean that they're going to dog in the playoffs that they seemingly always do. But, and the Bills, could be perennial, tough AFC, the new kings of the East, maybe the Bills. They don't look like they're going to lose that East spot for a while. Maybe Miami gives them a run, but it's weird stuff going to Miami where there was talk of, Watson going to Miami for Tua and other things. That could be interesting. Super Bowl pick, I'm going to see Green Bay and KC. Green Bay wins. Wow. Now, funny, when someone asked me that, being, the somewhat homer that I am, I said it was just on a whim. I said Steelers, Tampa Bay, and Steelers take the edge. So my Super Bowl pick has been blown out of the water. I'll be honest, I'm going to ride my train here. The only team that I have left that I wouldn't mind seeing win the Super Bowl, just because there's so many every other team seemingly annoys me. I'm going to say Buffalo. I don't, you could say the Browns have never won a Super Bowl, should get there, but I don't want the Browns to get there. I don't want anybody from the North to get there. The only team that should get to the Super Bowl from the North is the Steelers, always and ever. So the Bills, I would like to see, win one. So my pick would be the Bills. NFC for fun. Let's say Tampa Bay as well, just because it'd be fun. I enjoy seeing Brady lose, injected into my veins. I drink his tears like a fine champagne. I really enjoy seeing that man lose, and not just him, but with AB on the team. And the shame is I met AB several times at Steelers training camp. I like AB, but the fallout, what happened with AB, and just his loyalty to Brady frustrates me to no end. So yeah, I will take the Bills over Tampa Bay. And just for fun, let's say they blow them out. Just blow them out. Like, not a good Super Bowl. Bills dominate the entire time. That'd be fun. So let's take a score. Let's say 44-17, because Tampa Bay has some dogs. They have had some dog games this year where, there's times where Brady looks as good as Brady looked in New England, and then there's weeks this season where he has looked awful, and that team has looked awful. So let's say they get all the way to Super Bowl, they defy the odds, and they just throw up a dog against Buffalo, and Buffalo rolls. Cam Newton as new QB wouldn't be bad, but he's a lot of money. And the question is with Cam Newton is that what version of Cam Newton are you getting? I wouldn't mind seeing Cam Newton, but it doesn't seem you're getting the MVP version of Cam Newton anymore. Because if Belichick can't get anything from Newton, I don't know if Tomlin's going to get anything from Newton. And that's not to say that Belichick is some mastermind and wizard. In fact, I think Belichick's, overrated. And, keep in mind that they were gifted to, at least 2 Super Bowls, if not more. Not just because of cheating, but the Seattle gave them a gift and Atlanta gave them a gift. Literally gave up a Super Bowl to them. So I don't know about. I'm not saying we couldn't get Cam, and I think we could get Cam, to be honest, for not as much money as you think. As a bridge gap, I would take it. Maybe if you've got a young quarterback on the roster and Ben retires on you, I would take it. But the question is, what version of Cam are you getting? Because if you feel, like you said, if you feel you're getting Super Bowl level Cam, then you consider that. You consider it all day. But I don't know if you are getting Super Bowl level Cam. I think those years, sadly, are behind him. Not saying that some team won't be able to. I feel like he's going to be a good quarterback in a like as a second. He's going to sit behind someone. They're going to get hurt, and he's going to come in and he's going to get another contract because he's going to play to that high level because he has never had that level where he had to sit behind someone. And I think that's going to light the fire under Cam. And I think I don't know in what capacity or what team, but I feel like he's going to be a backup role to someone. He's going to come in and dog. He's going to come in and destroy someone. So, yeah, it's hard to say. Now the question is that is he going to be lethal as a runner? Because, kind of Cam has not been doing the same running and stuff that he did in Carolina that he did with the Patriots. So you don't know kind of what Cam you're getting. So I'd be concerned about bringing Cam in unless you're bringing him for extreme value. And if you're bringing him in for good value, then I'm all for it, especially if Ben retires. And maybe, I don't think they do that to Rudolph, but maybe even if Ben doesn't retire, if it's something you can get for pennies on the dollar, which, I still think he wouldn't go to that situation and he'd consider a situation where he has a better chance to start or make an impact. But yeah, and you're right. He didn't have the same weapons in New England. He didn't have the goods. And he will have plenty of weapons if he came here. Now the question is that what type of offensive line he's playing behind, because that offensive line was shaky this year. And are they better, or can they be better next year with some rookies starting on there, or maybe some seasoned cheap veterans? Who's to say? But I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I've been talking for an hour and a half about the Steelers. I had to get it all out. The sheer frustration. But yeah, I'm concerned for the future. It's going to be a wild off season. I'm going to be doing some regular Steelers updates. The hope being, very unlikely, but the hope being that my favorite event of the year, the Steelers Fan Blitz, goes on at Heinz Field. It probably will not, and I'll miss it. But hopefully, maybe Steelers training camp, perhaps. But I'll always do my wishful thinking mock draft. I will do my my pre-agency update and other things. Can you go live tomorrow? I think I've gotten it all out on this one. I usually do one every couple months live, especially with the Steelers and how fresh and rough this loss was. But yeah, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me for the past hour and a half, just throwing questions and comments and concerns and doing this together, getting this out together. I know there's a big national championship game on tonight. Who's to say who wins that one? It's hard to say that Alabama won't. But because Alabama seemingly wins every year, but Ohio State is tough. It's going to be interesting, because that'll wrap it up. Thanks so much for watching. If you were new to this channel and you came on here and watched me for this long, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. They can support me on Patreon. The links are not there yet, but they will be if you watch it on playback. You like a t-shirt, sweatshirt, spreadshirt shop, link is in the description below. Links to my eBay store, my new Facebook page, all types of different stuff. Rooting for Alabama. It's hard to root for Alabama because they're like the Patriots of college football. It seems like they're there every year. So you almost want to see them lose just because, but Alabama has such good talent every year. They just have the best talent. And you want those players. I want those Alabama players in Steelers uniforms, even though they don't seem to get there a lot because they they go too high in the draft. But yeah, guys, that'll wrap it up. Thanks so much for watching. And until the next video, I will see you soon with a bunch of different stuff. But until then, bye, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for all the comments. I greatly appreciate it.